Silver, wait those thrilling days of yesteryear with the Lone Ranger up next. Silver, away!
A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty Hi-Yo Silver, the Lone Ranger. Whenever men gathered around the campfire in the early days of the western United States, stories were told of the masked rider of the plains. Astride his great horse Silver, he rode through the length and breadth of the new territory in the cause of justice. No one could match his strength and courage. Nothing could discourage him, and he finally brought law and order to the lawless frontier. Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear, when adventure lay at the end of every trail. The Lone Ranger rides again.
Come on, Silver! We're heading for Arcade! Tonto's waiting on the trail ahead! Hello, Silver!
The legislature was about to choose a permanent state capital. Arcade, the site of the temporary capital, hoped to retain the honor, but unexpectedly, vigorous opposition developed from the supporters of Dundee. When the legislature convened at Arcade, the conflict between the two groups intensified. Mass meetings were held. Arguments ripened into quarrels. Pressure, open and concealed, was exerted. And at the time our story opens, Arcade supporters were bidding for attention with a parade down the main street. A parade that featured a band and banners, the former more spirited than expert at it.
Look out here, Mr. Blake. They're sure whooping up.
Forget it. Close that window, Max, and sit down here.
Oh, gosh, I sure like band music. Why didn't you never think of hiring a band to make some pretty noises for Dundee, Mr. Blake?
I didn't ask you and Rip to the hotel to advise me what to do.
What did you want, boss?
Rip, you and Max are going to see that the legislature votes in favor of Dundee.
Huh? How can we do anything?
I've had the legislators canvassed. The vote on the capital will be taken sometime next week. And I happen to know that the vote will be almost evenly divided.
You ought to know, Mr. Blake. You bought and paid for enough of them votes.
That's my business.
Oh, sure.
How close do you figure it's going to be?
Just close enough so that the decision will depend on three men.
Yeah?
Harry Palmer, Carl Hutton, and Fred Ulrich haven't decided between Arcade and Dundee yet. The others have. If we can get those 3 doubtful votes, we'll win.
Well, why don't you go and buy 'em like you done the others?
They can't be bought.
You want us to throw a scare in them?
And they can't be frightened. You might as well understand that now. Threaten them and we'll lose any chance we've got.
Cattlemen, eh?
Palmer and Ulrich are. Hutton's a banker.
You got some scheme in mind?
I have. I've got too much at stake in this not to make every effort to win. Move the capital to Dundee and I'll make a fortune. The railroad will build there. My town property will double in value. And, well, where the legislature is, there's always a way to make money for the right man.
Yeah.
I think as things stand, those 3 men will likely vote for Arcade. Dundee's reputation is against it.
That ain't nobody's fault but your own. You've always said you'd run the town the way you want.
Shut up, Max. Now then, there's just one thing to do.
What's that?
Arcade's known as a law-abiding town.
That's on account of Dan Graham. They say he's a doggonedest fella for keeping a law you ever seen.
I think you men can handle that.
Yeah?
Meaning?
I want things to bust wide open here. I want Palmer and Hutton and Ulrich to get the idea that Arcade's one of the most lawless towns they've ever seen. I want those men so disgusted with the place before the next week is up that they wouldn't vote for it under any consideration. And that's your job.
How far can we go?
As far as you wish.
There's no strings tied to it?
None whatever. With one condition. Don't get caught. Someone might know that you're in my employ and start putting 2 and 2 together. That would ruin things.
Mr. Blake, we'll stand this town on its head.
I'd like to make one suggestion.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I think that a series of hold-ups would be most effective. Take a man's cash and it starts him thinking.
I get you.
Hold up some of the members of the legislature. In fact, you might hold up the 3 men I've mentioned. Yeah. I think that would be a good idea. Keep them in mind. Hutton, Ulrich, Palmer.
Up with your hands, mister.
What in blue
Mister, hold up. I'll pass over your cash before I blow your head off.
This is a holdup. Give me that wallet. Don't make a move, partner. I'm collecting. This is the holdup.
I'll take that cash.
Stand where you are.
Up with your hands, friend.
This is a holdup.
I'll hold up, mister.
Don't make a move.
I'll hold up.
This is an outrage. They took every penny I had. All my cash in broad daylight. What's your cake coming?
Ain't there no law here? Stole my cash. Held me up.
Oh, Silver. Oh, fella. Oh, boy. Some of the reports we heard about Arcade certainly weren't exaggerated.
What you find out?
There have been more holdups this past week in town than in the last 2 years together.
That heap bad.
And certainly unfortunate with the vote on the Capitol coming up the day after tomorrow. If Dundee wins out, it'll be one of the worst things that could happen.
Dundee, heap crooked town.
And dominated by that fellow Blake. Wait.
What matter?
Dominated by Blake. I wonder...
Me no Blake. Him big crook. Law not catch him, though.
The crook hasn't been caught by the law. Tonto, it may not mean a thing. It may get us nowhere. But I've got an idea Blake would bear investigating.
What we do then?
You and I are going back to town.
We go now?
Yes, call Scout.
Here, Scout.
By the time we get there, it'll be dark again.
You want disguise?
No, I'll stay out of sight. No one will question you. Locate Blake. Follow him. See who he talks to. Find out what he has to say, if possible.
And Tonto do that.
I'll be waiting for you behind the cafe. It isn't likely anyone will be along that way, and there's plenty of cover. If you hear and notice anything at all that we can act on, let me know at once. If Arcade's to win the Capitol, we'll have to act in a hurry.
That's right.
Steady, old fellow. Come on,
Get him up,
Silver.
Scout.
Since the day he had issued instructions to Rip and Max, Blake had avoided all contact with them. He cultivated the acquaintance of the 3 legislators whose votes might settle Dundee's fate, and he lost no opportunity to point out Arcade's lawlessness. One evening he learned that Palmer and Ulrich planned a strong protest to the sheriff, Dan Graham. So Blake joined them as they walked down the street toward the cafe, and...
I tell you, gentlemen, it would be an insult. An insult, gentlemen, to our state to make Arcade his capital after the events of past week.
Things have been mighty bad, Blake, and that's fact.
Bad. Outrageous.
Of course, Dundee ain't such a pious town.
Mr. Elric, Dundee has its faults. Yes, I confess it. But I can give you my word that in all the years I've lived there's been no such outbreak as this. How long has it been since you've been in Dundee?
Oh, maybe 2 years.
And you, Mr. Palmer?
Gosh, I ain't been there for longer than that. But she was sure rip snorting terror that time.
Ah, then you should visit Dundee now, gentlemen. I give you my word you'd not recognize the town.
Got worse, has it?
Worse? Well, I should say not. I venture to say, gentlemen, that you won't find a more decent, self-respecting community anywhere between here and New England. In fact, Boston has the most...
You just now said you had to admit it had its faults.
What town hasn't? They amount to nothing.
That don't just square with the stories I've heard.
Lies maliciously circulated by the unscrupulous citizens of Arcade.
Oh, I didn't mean I was just told them things by folks from here.
A bad reputation is a hard thing to live down, Mr. Palmer. But Dundee is doing it.
Here's the cafe.
Dan's here, most likely. That was his horse we just passed at the hitch rail.
Yeah.
There he is. The bar.
Hi there, Sheriff. Howdy, gents.
Good evening.
Howdy, Dan.
Join me in a drink?
Nope, reckon not.
I believe these gentlemen have something of importance to say to you, Sheriff.
Yeah, something important? Well, gosh, I reckon it must be from the looks on your faces. Well, I wasn't hankering real bad for drink myself, but maybe I'll be needing one. Barkeep, about 3 fingers of red eye. Oh, I beg your pardon, Injun. If I bumped you, I didn't see you standing there.
Not all right.
Here you are, Dan.
Thank you. This ought to be fortifying. There. Now let's have it. It's got to do with them holdups, I'll bet you.
Something'll have to be done, Dan.
There's gonna be.
Going to be. You proved yourself incompetent to handle the situation. Arcade is simply too lawless for you.
Always done all right up until now, didn't I?
I'm not a resident of Arcade. I couldn't say.
Then don't get so pesky anxious to have you say so now.
Now, Dan, nobody means to get you riled.
This fellow does.
You just spoke hasty is all. Doggone it, Dan. You savvy as well as we do that this can't go on. Why, blast it, I've been held up twice. We've all been held up.
Didn't you hear me say there was going to be something done about it?
But you can't let these
Shucks,
things...
them fellas ain't so tough. When Arcade wasn't nothing but a Cross Trails cow town, I met up with plenty worse than them and put a curl in their tails, too.
You mean you have an idea who the scoundrels are?
I have.
Dan, I'm mighty glad to hear it.
That makes real good hearing.
Who are they?
I ain't a-saying.
But I want to
Oh,
know.
shucks, Blake. There ain't no use trying to pump Dan when he don't feel like talking. You might just well save your breath.
But as a taxpayer,
You
I
ain't
demand...
a taxpayer in this county, and if you was, you still wouldn't be running my office.
I think this is just a bluff, sir. I don't believe you have the slightest clue to the identities of those crooks. What's more, if you had, I have no confidence in your ability to capture them.
Yeah? Well, Mr. Blake, you listen to me.
Well, I'll listen to you.
By this time tomorrow night, I'll have them fellas locked up behind bars. You see if I don't. Then when I've got 'em there, I'm going to look you up and make you eat your words.
You're sure a fire eater, Dan.
I am with them as riles me.
Tomorrow night, I'll remind you of your promise.
That suits me fine. Now, if you folks will excuse me, I'll be getting about my business.
Well, there's nothing to keep us here. Come on, fellas. We'll walk back as far as the office with Dan if he's going that way.
Want something more to eat, Redskin?
No. Tonto go now.
Good night. Drop in again. I took me 30 head of good prime stock.
Steady. Steady, Scout.
Get 'em up, Scout.
Get 'em up. We've got to get to White Friend fast. Get 'em up, Scout.
That's you people, Tommy.
Tonto, hear news. Ho, Scout, ho. Ho, fella, ho.
Easy,
Ho.
Silver.
Tonto, what did you hear?
Sheriff, tell Blake. Him catch outlaw. Soon.
I wonder if the sheriff has any idea who they are.
Him say him no feller.
He did? You're sure of that?
Not right.
He told that to Blake?
That right.
Where's the sheriff now?
Him go that way.
You heard nothing that would connect Blake with the crooks.
No, me not here.
Possible there isn't a connection. But still...
What you think?
No, Tonto, we don't dare take the chance.
What you mean?
I mean that if Blake is behind these holdups, he'll tell the crooks that the sheriff threatens them.
Oh.
And if they're convinced the sheriff suspects who they are, they'll take steps to see he never gets a chance to use that knowledge. Blake may be innocent, Tonto, but if we fail to take precautions because of our doubt, we might be responsible for a man's death. They'd not hesitate to kill.
And what we do?
You said the sheriff left the cafe?
That's right.
And we're going to find him. We're going to keep him in sight until we know he's safe.
Not good idea.
Let's go, Tonto.
Get him up, Scout.
Hail Silver! Away!
The curtain falls on the first act of our Lone Ranger drama. Before the next exciting scenes, please permit us to pause for just a few moments. Now to continue our story. The Lone Ranger and Tonto rode after the sheriff to protect him. Several hours later, after the town had quieted down for the night and the sheriff had returned to his home, Max and Rip followed him.
So the meddling old fool thinks he's got us spotted, does he? Well, his being so doggone smart is just the worst luck he ever had.
He might have just been running a ranny.
Blake says he wasn't.
Sure, but Blake don't know everything, even if he thinks he does.
Is that any reason why we should take the chance of being jailed?
Oh, reckon not.
Sheriff has got to be shut up and shut up to stay. You got any objections?
Well, the only thing is, I ain't much for killing. I'd rather keep inside the law.
Inside the law. What in blazes do you think we've been doing this last week? Studying to be sky pilots?
Oh, shucks, you can't hardly call a few holdups being crooked. Why, that's more of a pastime, sort of.
And if you never did anything crooked before, you sure are before this night's over.
Well, I can stand it better than the sheriff, I reckon.
There's his house.
Must be still up.
Leave the horses here. Whoa there.
Oh,
Come on.
I'm with you. Hey there, boy.
Somebody's burning a lamp.
Sheriff ain't hitched, is he?
Don't think he is.
It's most likely him.
We'll find out mighty quick. Now keep that big mouth of yours closed.
Gosh, you're agreeable.
Quiet.
It's him, Rip.
What a blame good target he'll make sitting there beside that lamp. Look here. We'll both let him have it, then make tracks for the horses.
Yeah.
Put down those guns.
What
I'm
the-
asking.
I said drop those guns.
Let the sheriff have it and get out.
Oh, my hand!
Who's out there? Who's got it?
Come on, Silver. Grab them, Tonto.
Tonto, get him. Come on, run for it.
My hand!
Run. No, you don't. In the saddle with you. Let me go. Let me go.
Out there! Halt!
Got that fellow, Tonto.
My hand's busted.
Come on, Silver. Come on, old fellow. Get off and go.
Carrying their two struggling and terrified prisoners across their saddles, the Lone Ranger and Tonto raced for camp. There they reined in their horses.
Oh, Silver. Down with you.
What do you want with us?
Blast you. You nearly blowed my hand off.
Your hand isn't hurt. But if I hadn't hit your gun, your shot might have killed the sheriff.
What's that to you?
I'll ask the questions. Yeah, what's this?
Keep your hands away from that pocket.
A wallet. Looks like a lot of cash in it, too. Some of the money you've stolen?
What do you mean that we stole?
I know you're the men who've been responsible for the holdups in town.
That ain't so.
You can't prove nothing on us.
You're Blake's men, aren't you?
Blake. Who's he?
Never heard of him.
And why did you try to kill the sheriff?
What do you mean?
Tonto and I were near the sheriff's home because we knew Blake had been told the sheriff suspected certain men of the holdups. We knew Blake might have reason to be behind those holdups. We were, he'd warned the men he'd hired.
You must be loco.
And then we found you attempting to kill the sheriff. It fits too well. There's no use your denying it.
You can talk all you want, but you won't get nothing out of us.
I don't doubt but what this wallet is stolen. What have you done with the rest of the loot? There must be a great deal more.
You heard what Max told you. We can't stop you from asking, but you sure can't make us answer.
Very well. Tonto, put these men back in the saddle. We'll take them into the sheriff.
Hey, you
He was
can't.
leaning out of the window before we got away. He must have seen these men. He'll recognize them again. We turn them over to law, huh? Get mounted, you two.
No, wait. The sheriff's seen you, too.
Of course. But Tonto and I'll be able to get away again. We'll see that you don't.
What do you want to know?
I'll ask you once more. Where have you hidden the money you've stolen?
Tell him, Rip. We can't let him take us back.
Hurry.
We buried it right next to that big cottonwood. Straight back from the harness shop.
The one in the meadow?
Uh-huh.
Now, let us go. We told you what you asked us.
Not all of it. I want a confession that you've been employed by Blake.
We don't know the fella at all. We told you that.
I heard you, but I didn't believe it.
We've done all the talking we're going to.
And I'm afraid you will have to see the sheriff.
All right, go on and take us. We still ain't talking.
You don't have to.
Huh?
You've already confessed.
We never done no such thing.
It wasn't difficult to get you to tell where the loot was hidden, because you're being paid by someone for these holdups.
You can think what you want.
You still have something to gain, as long as you don't get in bad with Blake by implicating him.
Go on and talk. See what good it does you.
There's probably still another motive for your silence. You're more afraid of Blake's anger than you are of the sheriff.
You're a mighty good guesser, ain't you?
Those aren't guesses. They agree with the facts.
What do you aim to do with us?
There are several things I'm going to do.
Yeah?
I'm going to see that when the vote is taken in the legislature the day after tomorrow, Arcade gets the capital.
A fine chance that town's got.
When that happens, Blake will be ruined. Dundee's a boom town. It's slipping already. If Blake could have secured the capital for Dundee, it would have come out on top. Without the capital, his investments will soon be worthless.
What's that got to do with us?
Blake is not only going to be ruined, he's going to believe you two the cause of it.
What? You're talking through your hat.
We'll see. Tonto, disarm these men and tie them. They're not going to get the chance to skip out before Blake deals with them.
The following evening, Harry Palmer and Fred Ulrich were in Dan Graham's office. The attack on the sheriff's life had made them arrive at a final decision concerning the proper location for the state capital, and...
No, Dan, we're sorry about what happened and all, but Dundee is going to get our vote.
That crooked town.
That's just your opinion, Dan. No, I feel like Palmer here does. First it's holdups, and then it come close to being murder. We're friends of yours, and we'd like to please you. But we're here representing the folks that elected us. We got to decide things like this in the way we think is best.
That's the way it is, Dan.
You're the best friends I've got.
Well, thank you, Dan.
And besides that, you're a couple of blind, addle-headed, stubborn, woolly-brained idiots that ain't got the sense of a day-old calf that's been kicked in the head by a mule. You're being fooled by that Blake fellow with all his slick talk. And you're just dumb enough to think you're smart enough to decide for yourself. Get out of here. Go on, get out. I don't feel so friendly just now.
Well, we'll drop around again tomorrow when you're over your unfriendly feeling. Come on, Palmer.
Stay where you are.
What the...
Mask!
Put down them guns.
Careful, Sheriff. Don't make the mistake of trying to draw. You're Ulrich,
What if I am?
and you're Palmer,
I am?
and I've got a message for you.
We got nothing to do with a masked crook.
You see these guns?
You can't scare us.
Certain friends of mine are interested in the way you'll vote on the state capitol tomorrow. I'm here to tell you how to vote.
Why,
You'll vote for Dundee, or take the consequences.
You're threatening us?
I think you understand me.
You see, I told you what kind of a town that was. Hiring gunmen to bully you fellas into voting their way.
Who sent you here?
Never mind that. Just remember this. Vote for Dundee,
What?
or you may stop lead.
You listen to me.
Well,
No man ever bullied me with a gun and got away with it. You ain't going to be the first one.
you've had your warning. That's enough. Tonto, they're so angry they wouldn't vote for Dundee no matter what happens. Now to call on Carl Hutton. Come on, Silver.
Get him up, Scout.
Hutton?
Crook.
I'm not here to rob you, Hutton.
Then what do you
Here,
want?
this wallet. Take it.
What's this for?
You're a banker, Hutton. You understand the value of money. My friends are giving you that. and expect to get value in return.
Value?
Tomorrow you're voting for Dundee. Don't forget. If you do forget, this won't be a healthy state for you.
Well, I'll be...
Now what?
Trying to bribe me. Bribe me with my own money. You crook, this is the wallet that was stolen from me just 3 nights ago.
Then you're lucky to get it back. Now back to camp, Tonto. Get him up, go. Away!
The following day, when the legislature convened for the all-important vote, feeling ran at fever heat. The temporary Capitol building, a converted town hall, was filled to overflowing with partisan spectators. No one could guess at the outcome of the vote, though everyone present knew it would be close. At the sound of the gavel, the crowd became silent. The vote was to be taken by roll call, and as the clerk called out the names of the legislators, one by one, and each replied, the tension mounted.
James Keegan. Dundee. Terry Palmer. Arcade. Carl Houghton. Arcade.
Slowly the roll was called. Slowly the vote was cast. Then at last the clerk reached the final name on his list, that of Fred Ulrich.
Fred Ulrich. Arcade.
It can't be! Something's wrong! Dundee couldn't have been beat! You can't tell me!
Blake, you're out of order. Quiet! Quiet!
But it can't be! It can't be!
Wait.
I
I'll tell you why your crooked town got beat. Your hired gunman tried to bully me into voting your way. You beat yourself.
No, wait! I tell you...
same stunt was tried on
He
me.
tried to bribe me with money stolen from me in the first place.
The blasted fools.
Hey, what's that disturbance at the door?
The Indian's holding a gun on me.
Rip! Max, you stupid blundering fools! I'll fix you for this!
No, Mr. Blake, it wasn't us. Honest, it wasn't.
It's a trick, Mr. Blake. This redskin here was in on it.
What redskin?
Well, he was here just a second ago.
He pushed us in here ahead of his shooting iron.
Ah, lies! You'll be sorry for this day as long as you live. Yes, and I got something to make 'em sorry about. They're the fellas I suspicion staging them hold-ups. I seen 'em outside my house just after I was shot at.
No,
Listen, please, we were tricked.
You're going to jail and answer some downright pointed questions. And when you're through with them, Sheriff, turn them over to me. They've ruined me with their blundering, and I'll see that they pay.
Tonto, there are several people in town who think me an outlaw, but the results were worth it. Arcade got the capital. Blake lost out. Whether his 2 men are convicted by the law or not, Blake will see to it their lives are made miserable. Him plenty mad. Oh, Silver! Away! Come on, Silver, old boy! There's justice to be done! Tonto's waiting for us! Hi-yo, Silver! Away!
story you have just heard is a copyrighted feature of the Lone Ranger Incorporated.
We have here a bulletin from London. The German Transocean News Agency now says the Allied offensive area has been extended to the entire Norman Peninsula. And the British radio says that 3 hours after troops first hit the French coast, bulldozers were hard at work on the job of preparing a landing strip for our planes. The London staff of NBC's invasion reporters have been standing by since the first official flash was transmitted from General Eisenhower's headquarters at 3:32 this morning. Some of the men have been out with the assault units, so we're now going to switch you to NBC in London for another broadcast from the focal point.
While we are waiting for London to come in, I should like to comment for a moment on the development of this beach strip that the bulletin has just spoken of. The Normandy Peninsula has a large, flat area which extends down to the coast, and evidently our plans contemplated using that flat strip on the coast. In other words, we're doing something rather unusual. Instead of relying on airfields farther inland, we are now relying on an airfield that we are going to construct directly on the landing strip which we have taken on the Normandy shoreline. The fact that we brought in bulldozers, that they are now at work, indicates that.
We take you now to London.
This is London at 8:45 p.m. In a moment, we hope to establish contact with the American radio reporter, Merrill Muller, covering General Eisenhower's headquarters, somewhere in England. Go ahead, Merrill Muller. This is Robert Barr speaking from Advanced Allied Command Post on the 6th of June. This is dispatch. This is London again. There's been a slight delay in getting the broadcast just announced. One moment, please. By Duncan.
It is evident, then, from all recent dispatches, that we now have much more than a beachhead, because at one point our troops have extended their holdings to a width of more than 15 miles at one point, and we have that on the authority of the Germans themselves. Their latest estimate as to the size of our most important beachhead on the Normandy coast is 16.5 miles in width, and the extension to a depth of several miles. That means, of course, that we can construct an airstrip right there on the beach, an airstrip that will be of great importance in the further development of our offensive operations. That would explain also the occupation of some of the Channel Islands, Guernsey and Jersey. Those islands are just off the coast of Normandy, and any effort to operate from Normandy would necessitate our eliminating the Germans who have been holding these Channel Islands. And so now, if you will look at your map, you'll see how this whole invasion picture ties up into a logical operation whose first objective is to secure complete control of the Normandy Peninsula. That peninsula is 80 miles from Britain, and yet, for our purpose of invasion, it has many obvious advantages. And, of course, it had the particular advantage that the Germans were not expecting us to attack at that particular point. It's something like 120 miles from Paris. Once we hold it securely, and we can establish ourselves there more effectively in a short time because it is a peninsula. That means that we have access to it from 3 sides, from the sea. The Germans have access to it only across a narrow strip of land. And so even with inferior forces, if we succeed in gaining time, we would be ready to meet the German assault which will undoubtedly develop against that peninsula. Obviously, what is happening now is that the Germans, having decided what our plan of campaign is on the basis of the events which they themselves have reported for us during the last 12 hours, obviously they are now concentrating their forces for the counterattack. We must expect that that will be a heavy attack. It is the first German major effort to answer the invasion. Their preliminary efforts, their preparations against invasion have largely failed. The passage of the sea across that 80 miles from the South British coast to Normandy was accomplished with much greater ease than we had expected. Our losses were far lower than we had anticipated. The bombings of our air forces and the superior bombardment developed by those tremendous naval guns ranging from 4-inch to 16-inch on a great host of warships which have been assailing the French coast now for the last 16 hours, that too was more effective than we had expected it to be. And as a result, when our invasion forces came in, they found that the defenses were much less effective than we had expected them to be. Obviously, this invasion effort which we are making is far larger than anything in history. These landings have taken place with extreme accuracy, as Mr. Churchill put it to the House of Commons. They have taken place with very little loss. Risk, of course, was involved. We did not want to take the greater risk that was involved in the bad weather which we had yesterday. And so the whole operation was postponed for 24 hours. And the obvious result, as is evidenced by what has happened today, was a decided reduction in the risk. Our airborne troops, therefore, are now well established. And we are following up. Because remember that only the first invasion waves have landed. We are now following up with other waves. We will continue to follow up with one wave after another. For obviously, this short distance of sea can be traversed in a very short time by all our craft, by our landing craft to go back for new loads, by our warships to get fresh supplies. And so, one wave of invasion will follow another. Now, it's also very possible that our plan contemplates at least 2 or 3 major invasions at as many different points. It is even possible that this Normandy invasion is a minor one compared with those that will follow. Remember what Mr. Churchill said some months ago when he said that there would be rehearsals and false landings. There would be attempts to deceive the enemy. We don't know which is going to be our major drive. And this is also possible, that we have 2 or 3 places in mind, any one of which could serve as a point of major attack. And we will permit developments to dictate whether or not this Normandy attack, or the one at the mouth of the Seine, at Havre, which is also being developed at this time, that should be the one on which we base our major drive. Obviously, if we can get control of so fine a port as Le Havre, which is undoubtedly the finest on that part of the French coast, we would be foolish not to use it to its full capacity. Yes, some of its installations will be destroyed, but we learned at Naples how quickly, with our modern facilities, a harbor that seems completely unusable can be restored to use. And with all the experience that we have had in Africa and Italy to back us up, surely we are prepared to deal with whatever situation we may find in almost any French port. And so, we are just coming now to the beginning of the invasion story. Let us remember that this is only an initial move. It does not yet reveal the whole picture of our tactics. We are underway definitely in Normandy. We are underway definitely in the area of Havre. The fighting is going on heavily for the city of Caen, which is the most important railroad center of the Normandy Peninsula. It is already evident that our troops have penetrated from 10 to 15 miles, and it is quite possible that by this time junctions have been effected between those troops that debarked from the landing barges and those that were flown anywhere from 10 to 15 miles inland to cooperate in the invasion. The completeness of the surprise which we succeeded in effecting is evidenced by the fact that the Germans were unable to destroy a number of important bridges which had a key position in connection with the invasion. We had marked them on our maps. We had landed paratroopers with a specific function of controlling those bridges, and word has come back from the French continent that they were successful, that these bridges are in our control. And that means that all these tanks which have landed, these tanks, some of which have already been in battle, are now going to be able to utilize those bridges in order to reach the key points connected with invasion. You have a picture of 250 miles of French coast, landings certainly at two important points. A beachhead expanded in one case to 16.5 miles. Landings possibly at anywhere from 7 to 9 to 12 other points. Landings that are even now being developed. And within the next few hours, as the bulletins come in, you will see that the invasion operation, as we have reported it to you thus far, has only begun.
We take you now to London for Merrill Muller.
Somewhere in England. Unfortunately,
NBC in New York calling London.
Contact Merrill Muller at General Eisenhower's headquarters somewhere in England. So this terminates the broadcast in London. Standby network, please.
Once again, here's H.V. Kaltenborn.
Well, I'm sorry that you didn't get Merrill Muller's broadcast, but such is Invasion Day with its peripatetic maneuvers. I wish that you, who are out there, could be in here with us in the newsroom and see the remarkable calisthenics, verbal and physical, and also physiological, that have been going on between the engineering department and this particular booth in which I find myself. You see, we have channels open to London. We are so eager not to miss any of Merrill Muller's broadcast for you that we are constantly monitoring the channel. And the purpose of that is that the instant that we know that he is coming through, that I can stop my verbal peregrinations and that you can be transferred to the real front line to get the first-hand reports. So I hope that you listeners will bear with us in our efforts to do the best we can under circumstances that, as you can well understand, are sometimes a little difficult. Let me summarize in these next 2 minutes just about what the situation is. Beachheads, firmly established at least 2 points. Greater success than we had anticipated in the original landing operations. Losses, thus far, remarkably light. Our preliminary bombardment, very definitely successful in eliminating German air power, in eliminating German artillery power along the coast. Here is a bulletin from Naples. Premier Marshal Pietro Badoglio dissolved his Italian government today and was charged by Crown Prince Umberto with forming a new government to include political leaders in liberated Rome. The purpose, as you see, to broaden the Italian government to include those prominent men who have been isolated from the Italian political situation through being in Rome itself. A further step in the democratization of Italy. We are, because of the capture of Rome, developing a new situation in Italy itself. And even as we succeed in Italy, our landings are succeeding on the coast of France.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kaltenborn. Ladies and gentlemen, we're still attempting to contact Merrill Miller in his position with General Eisenhower's headquarters, so if you stay tuned to your present NBC station, as soon as we can, we'll bring it to you. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Groucho Marx is your host, as some of the most interesting contestants you will ever meet compete on You Bet Your Life. Up next.
Ladies and gentlemen, the secret word tonight is door. D-O-O-R.
Really?
You bet your life. Groucho Marx in You Bet Your Life, the comedy quiz series produced and transcribed from Hollywood and brought to you by the more than 3,000 DeSoto Plymouth dealers, the dealers who bring you America's most talked-about new car, the distinguished 1953 DeSoto, and the exciting new Plymouth. See them both at your DeSoto Plymouth dealers. And here he is, the one, the only...
Charming fellow. Oh, that's me. Well, here I am again with $2,000 for one of our couples.
Groucho, we invited some drum majorettes to the program tonight, and just before we went on the air, our studio audience here selected Miss Marilyn Watson. Her partner, Mr. Joe Fox, was chosen for sort of obvious reasons. I think you'll see when he comes out here. Folks, would you meet Groucho Marx? Right here, Marilyn. Right in there.
Well, welcome. Welcome for the DeSoto Plymouth dealer. Say the secret word and divide $100. It's a common word, something... Is there a mirror in front of me? It's something that you find around the house. Is that any kind of a cue, Marilyn?
Well, it limits the
Yes, it does. It constricts it considerably. Now,
Yes,
Mr. Joe Fox, this is ridiculous. Nobody looks that much like me. Let's take a good look at him. Looks awfully crooked, this guy. He looks like me, all right. Where are you from, you great, big, beautiful hunk of man?
Chicago, the south side of Chicago, Hyde Park, to be specific.
Somebody out there from Galesburg. Joe, I'm curious. How long ago did you first notice that you closely resembled a certain gay, handsome lover whose name I can't remember?
Well, frankly, the resemblance never did occur to me. About 2.5 years ago, it was called to my attention. A couple of young boys walked up and...
Somebody threw rocks at you?
No, they looked up and, I imagine equal to the amazement you presented tonight, and said, "Hello, Groucho." I guess they didn't expect to see him walking about at large in public.
I see. They thought I'd be carried around? Is that it? What sort of work do you do, Joe?
Well, I'm employed by the Los Angeles County Parks and Recreation Department. I'm on a civil defense assignment, working with the Civil Defense Warden Service.
Are you married?
Yes, I am.
You are, huh? Mm-hmm. Do your friends kid you about your looks?
Yes, quite frequently.
They do, huh? What do they say?
Well, the biggest problem is when people or youngsters walk up to me and say, "Are you Groucho?" And most of the time I say no because I don't want to be dishonest, but sometimes just to be different, I say yes. Mm. Well, that presents a problem because they ask me to say something funny and I can't.
Well, I frequently have that same problem. I'll get back to this space pirate in a minute. I'd like to talk to you for a minute, Marilyn.
Thank you.
What is it you do?
Well, I'm a drum majorette.
A drum majorette?
Yes.
Well, that's pretty limited work, isn't it? How often do you march? On the 4th of July?
No, I march every time the Los Angeles Rams play their home games here in the Coliseum. I twirl when they're here. I'm not on the team.
In that case, judging from the recent scores, you might be. Well, how do you go about twirling a baton? Is it anything like twirling a mustache?
Not having never twirled a mustache, I don't know, but...
Well, the offer is still open, you know. I've often wondered about you girls. Have you ever hit anybody with that baton?
Well, I've hit myself quite a bit, but it happened that last season one of the girls' batons went wild and hit a football player who was sitting on the bench.
The player went wild or the baton?
The baton went wild, but he was kind of mad.
Did he get hurt?
Well, no, and besides, he's on the other team, so it didn't matter.
Well, I guess that's a secret play the coach uses only in emergencies, huh? Now, Mr. Fox, you sly old fox, could you get interested in Marilyn here?
Oh, Mr. Marks, aren't you forgetting I'm a happily married man?
Answer my question. Could you get interested?
On advice of counsel, I better not say more.
You see, you can't judge a book by its cover. He didn't pass the acid test. Joe, I'm ashamed of you. You turn in your face tonight, you're through. I don't want you masquerading around with my face anymore, if that's your attitude. Well, it's been an experience talking to you two, and I hope you win a reasonable amount of money here tonight. Because in just 1 minute, you're going to play You Bet Your Life for a chance at the $2,000 question. Right now, I want you to pay close attention to a very lovely lady. Here we go. Let's see how high I can build you $20. You selected largest cities and states. These figures were taken from the 1950 statistics compiled by the Bureau of Census. Here's your first question. How much will you bet?
About
$12.
$12, all right. What is the largest city in the state of Georgia?
Atlanta.
Atlanta is right.
Well, you're on your way with $32.
Remember, you're going for $2,000 tonight. How much of your $32 will you bet on your second question?
25.
25. What is the largest city in the state of Connecticut?
New Haven.
One answer between you now. Is that the answer you've decided on?
Connecticut. Bridgeport.
Oh, I'm sorry. The time is up. It's Hartford.
Oh, yeah.
You now have $7.
You now have $7. Well, don't get discouraged. Don't forget, you're still going for the big money. Now, how much of the 7 would you try?
5.
5? All right. What is the largest city in the state of Iowa?
Des Moines.
Des Moines?
Des Moines is right.
Well, you're climbing again. You have $12.
And here's your last chance to beat the other couples. How much of the $12 will you risk?
$10.
Oh, you want to?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, here we go. What is the largest city in the state of Tennessee?
Memphis.
Memphis is right. Thanks and good luck from the DeSoto Plymouth dealers.
Well, you wind up with $22, but we'll add $3 to it to make it $25. Well, Groucho, we invited some sewing instructors to the show tonight, and just before we went on the air, our studio audience selected Mrs. Ardis Edwards. Her partner is a man with an interesting occupation, Mr. William E. Connolly. Folks, would you please come in and meet Groucho Marx?
Welcome to You Bet Your Life. Say the secret word and divide $100. It's a common word, something you find around the house. Mrs. Ardis Edwards and Mr. William Connolly, eh? Mrs. Edwards, you're a sewing teacher?
Yes, sir.
Uh-huh. Who do you work for?
Singer?
Crosby or Como?
No, I work for the Singer Sewing Machine Company.
Oh, that sounds like a very funny act. I suppose you keep people in stitches all the time.
That's the oldest one I've heard in a long time.
You think that's all? You should have been out here about 10 minutes ago. What do you teach these women in your class? How to be old so-and-sos?
That's the second oldest one I've heard in a long time.
Well, you stick around and you will hear the third oldest joke in a few minutes. What sort of work do you do, Mr. Conley?
I'm a fight second.
You're a fight second. That's a good idea. Let somebody else fight first and you fight second. Now, what exactly is a fight second?
Well, we get the boys ready to go in and fight and refresh them between rounds so they're able to go out and continue on with the match.
What did you do before you became a fight second?
Can you look at this kisser of mine and ask me that question? I got that ear from Tiger Flowers, and he straightened out my nose a bit, too.
Well, what kind of a record did you have as a fighter?
I had 157 fights, and I lost 7. 5 of them were split decisions. I won the New England Middleweight Championship.
Oh, that's very good. What name did you fight under?
Bing Conley.
Bing Conley, huh?
Yes, sir.
What is the toughest fight you ever had?
The toughest fight I ever had was with Tiger Flowers.
Oh, the middleweight champion, huh?
Yeah.
Well, he was a great fighter. Could you tell us something about the Tiger Flowers fight?
Well, I made a mistake of talking to him, and what I said didn't agree with him, and he went to work on me.
Well, what did you say to him that aroused his anger?
I told him what I was going to do to him after I get through with the fight. I told him I'd take his head and use it for a bowling ball.
That's not very practical, is it?
Well, I found out it wasn't that night. He beat the ribbons out of me, the ribbons.
Did he knock
this
you out?
This ear was out like that. Nobody ever knocked me out.
Nobody ever knocked you out?
No, sir. For 5 rounds, I didn't make an error. So I said to my trainer, I'm getting murdered out there. What am I doing? It's wrong. He says, well, you're talking to this guy. He said, what you're saying. Hey, this guy's a deacon in the church.
That's true. He was the deacon.
I said, why didn't you tell me that 5 rounds ago?
He says he didn't know it 5 rounds ago.
I went out for the next round. I got hit with about 50 punches before I even got close to him. I said, listen, Deacon, the good Lord never told you to kill anybody. So he kind of thought he had a convert. I hit him a left hook and a right hand, and he hit the deck himself. I had him down 5 rounds, but I didn't win a round of the fight.
Well, you did pretty well, because he was one of the greatest fighters of his era. Well, I'd like to continue talking to you two, but I'm getting punchy. Now you're going to have a chance to win a lot of money. You beat our other couples, you'll get a chance at the $2,000 question.
Our first couple, the drum majorette and Mr. Fox, have $22, and the secret word is door.
Here we go. Let's see how high I can bill you $20. Now, these are all descriptive words about articles of women's apparel. I'll give you the word, and you tell me what article of clothing I'm referring to. Now, here's your first question. How much will you bet? Now, talk it over.
It's all right. You know what it's all about, go ahead.
$17.50, did you say? All right. What do you associate with the word cardigan?
Cardigan is a little jacket, over jacket.
That's right. Well, it's a sweater, but that's close enough.
You're on your way. You have $37.50.
Remember, you're going for $2,000 tonight. How much of your $37.50 will you try on this one?
35.
35? What do you associate with the word dolman? D-O-L-M-A-N.
Dolman is a coat. A dolman sleeve in a coat.
Sleeve is right.
You're really climbing. You have $72.50.
And here's your third question. How much of the $72.50 will you try?
70.
Go ahead.
70.
What do you associate with the word Peter Pan?
Peter Pan is a collar.
Collar is right.
You now have $142.50.
And here's your last chance to be the other couples. How much will you bet?
Shoot the works.
All of it.
All of it? All right. What article of clothing do you associate with the word bolero?
Bolero is this little brown jacket.
That's right. As the jacket is right. Yeah, you did a fine job.
And you wind up with $285.
Thanks and good luck from the DeSoto Plymouth dealers.
Groucho, we have a grandmother and a man with an interesting hobby for you now. Mrs. Alma Bell Davis and Mr. Mike Elwood, please come in and meet Groucho Marx.
Welcome for the DeSoto Plymouth dealers. Say the secret word and you'll divide $100. It's a common word, something you'll find around the house. Mrs. Alma Bell Davis, you're a grandmother?
Yes. 74.
74. You know what Bulwer said? It is not by the gray of the hair that one knows the age of the heart. We try to add a little culture now and then to the program. Very few quiz shows give you that kind of stuff. Now, what shall I call you, Mrs. Davis?
Call me Grandma.
Okay. I'll be delighted to. Now, where are you from, Granny?
Seminole, South Carolina.
Oh, South Carolina, eh? And how long have you been away from Carolina?
Oh, I've been away a long time. I stayed there until I was 29.
Mm-hmm. And then you migrated to California?
I went up north to Tennessee first.
Wait till Kefauver finds out that Tennessee is up north, huh? How many children and grandchildren do you have?
I have 3 children, 10 grandchildren, and 9 great-grandchildren.
Well, you have quite a large family, don't you, Grandma? Tell me, do you live all alone now, or do you live with one of your children or grandchildren?
No, I live with my friend Sadie Ingham, my girlfriend Sadie Ingham.
I think that's a very smart idea. Since you're 74 years old, you should be with someone who can sort of keep an eye on you.
Well, she's 92, so she doesn't.
Your girlfriend is 92? So's mine. Let's shake on it, Granny. I wonder if it could be the same girl. Sadie Ingram, huh? Well, she may be using a different name with me. Have you and Sadie ever encountered any exciting moments around the house, like finding a burglar?
Well, we didn't find a burglar, but we came to the house one morning at 2 o'clock.
Wait a minute. Was this recently?
Oh, not too long ago.
What were you and Sadie doing out at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Oh, it takes us a long time to go from different places home. One night we got home.
Did you stagger when you came home? Or?
No, we didn't do that, but the door was locked and we couldn't get it open. Wait a minute. You said door, and that's the secret word. So you and your boyfriend over here are going to split $100.
Ooh, beat it, Doc.
Swell.
But what happened there?
So we couldn't get in, and I went and got a box out of the garage, put it under the window, and I couldn't get in. Sadie helped me. I got halfway in.
Which half did you get in,
So the neighbor came over and helped us to get in.
She's real cute, isn't she? What do you mean, the neighbor? How old was the neighbor?
78.
And she was shoving you and Sadie in through this window?
Sure.
And then how did the neighbor get back in?
Oh, the neighbor, he got the door open.
Oh, this was a male. Oh, I thought this was a woman, this neighbor.
No, man.
A man, huh?
Sure.
What was his name?
Every once in a while we have to call on a man.
Well, they're a handy thing to have around when there's a window stuck. Mr. Mike Elwood, eh? I can't call you Mike. I barely know you. May I call you Michael?
Well, no. I'm known as Mike, but my name is really Julius.
That's pretty baffling, isn't it? What sort of work do you do, Julius?
I own Lords and Elwood. That's a spirit shop.
A spirit shop? What do? You sell only to ghost riders in the skies?
No.
What do you mean, a spirit shop?
No, we sell...
you don't mean a booze emporium, do you?
Well, not exactly. We sell unusual liqueurs, rare wines, old brandies.
In other words, you peddle bathtub gin, is that it?
I don't believe you would call wine that sells at $182.50 a gallon bathtub gin, would you?
No, I call it highway robbery. Julius, Fenneman says you have an interesting hobby. What is it?
Well, I belong to a club called the Wine and Food Society. It's an organization for gourmets.
What is the purpose of this club?
Well, the purpose of the club is to stimulate an interest in food.
And what is a gourmet?
A gourmet is really
He's a pig.
Well, there's a much better definition. A gourmet is a glutton with a tuxedo on.
Well, how do you go about stimulating an interest in food?
Well, we have 8 dinners a year, and we try to make each one perfect.
You have only 8 dinners a year?
That's right.
Well, those between-meal snacks are ruining your figure, Julius. Grandma, do you have any hobbies like cooking fancy dishes? Or do you spend your life stuck in a window?
No, my hobby is catching gophers.
Well, you told me you were single, Grandma. Grandma, you didn't fool me for a minute. I knew the minute you came up here that your hobby was catching gophers. The minute you came here, I said to myself, now, if I ever saw a woman whose hobby is catching gophers, this is it. How do you go about catching these gophers? And how is it your hobby?
Well, I have a shopping bag, and I have had 3 gopher traps, but now I've only got 2. And
What happened to the other one?
somebody stole it. And I open up the runway, put the trap in. I first go to when I see where there's been a gopher, I go and ask rap on the door and ask the neighbor if I can catch the gopher, and they say yes.
You mean you make a house-to-house canvas of this? You go to a strange person's house, knock on the door, and say, have you got any gophers?
No, I know all these people.
Oh. Well, suppose the gopher doesn't go for the trap. How do you catch him?
Well, I get a nice, tender, delicious carrot, holler it out, and put poison in.
That sounds very appetizing, Grandma. Mike, do you suppose you could get Grandma into your gourmet society? She sounds like she could whip up some nice little dishes. Roast gopher with a baked carrot on top. Topped off with some rare old 1823 rat poison. Now, how about it? Does Grandma get into your club, Mike?
I'm afraid the membership is full.
Well, I'm not surprised the way they eat, but can't you get in? Well, when will there be an opening?
When one of the members dies.
Really? Well, Grandma can arrange for that, can't you? Can't you, Grandma? Well, this has been a most interesting conversation and quite educational. And I wish I could continue it, but I just had a poison carrot and I don't feel so good. However, now's your chance to win a lot of money. You run your $20 into more than our other couples, and you'll get a chance at the $2,000 question. I can't tell you how much you have to win, but George is going to remind our listeners.
The sewing teacher and the prize fighter are ahead with $285.
Here we go. Let's see how high I can bill you $20. From our list of 20 categories, you selected number 5, the animal kingdom. Here's your first question. How much will you bet? Now talk it over and talk out loud.
1950.
1950. What is the name of the black and white bear that comes from China and Tibet?
Cola.
I'm sorry, it's a panda. P-A-N-D-A.
Gee, you now have 50 cents.
You should have known that, Mike. I'm sure you've eaten one at one of your dinners. Now you're down to 50 cents. Well, you're going for $2,000 tonight, so don't worry about it. Now, how much you going to bet on your second question?
40. 40 cents?
40 cents. What is the name of the long-necked animal used widely as a beast of burden in Peru? Its wool is used extensively for clothing.
Llama?
Llama is right.
You now have 90 cents.
How much of this vast sum are you going to jeopardize this time?
Get the word, son. All of it?
All of it. All right. What is the name of the little animal whose facial markings resemble a mask? It always washes its food before eating.
A possum. Raccoon.
Raccoon is right. I think they're about the same, aren't they? Aren't they the same, a possum and raccoon? Well, they're blood brothers. We'll give you that anyhow, huh?
You now have
We're very generous with these things, particularly when they're only 90 cents. All right, here's your last chance to be the other couples. How much of the 180 are you going to bet? $1.80, I mean.
Shoot the word.
Holding.
All right, Granny. What is the large and stupid beast that lives in Asia and Africa? It has a single sharp horn.
The rhinoceros.
Rhinoceros is right.
And you wind wind up with $3.60.
Well, we're going to give you one more question. You get this right, and we'll bring your winnings up to $25. All right, here we go. What was the population of Outer Mongolia in 1923? Oh, no, that's the wrong question. Even I couldn't have answered that. All right, we don't want to make it too easy, though. Are you ready? How many rings are there in a 3-ring circus?
Go ahead.
How many, Am?
You answer.
3.
3 rings is right. Put it there.
You people wound up with $3.60, and that means that the sewing teacher and the prize fighter, with $285, in just 1 minute get the chance of the DeSoto Plymouth $2,000 question.
Time out now for some friends who want to know what's new.
What's new? The 53 Plymouth. It's news. The 53 Plymouth. The low price deal has a brand new star. The truly balanced Plymouth. A new kind of car. A new kind of car.
Boy, things are sure buzzing at DeSoto Plymouth dealers. Ever since the new 53 Plymouth came along last week, folks have been streaming in to see this new kind of car.
They're talking about Plymouth's new beauty, inside and out. New styling from the wheels up. Wonderful new ride that gives you almost gyroscopic stability on even the roughest roads. It's a whole new concept of car design. True Balance.
Come in and meet the new Plymouth. See for yourself how True Balance gives it a lower, racier look.
And control tower visibility. A new one-piece curved windshield. And wider, deeper windows all around.
More room, too, for passengers and luggage.
It's the car to see for 53. The new Plymouth. First truly balanced car in the low-priced field.
The low-priced field has a brand new star. The truly balanced Plymouth. A new kind of car.
And now here's the sewing teacher and the prize fighter all set for the DeSoto Plymouth $2,000 question, Groucho.
Here we go for $2,000. I'll give you 15 seconds to decide on a single answer between you. Think carefully, and please no help from the audience. Here it is. One of the great storytellers of all time was born in Scotland and spent the last years of his life in the South Seas. Today he lies buried on a mountain peak in Samoa. For $2,000, what is the name of this immortal novelist? Okay, what is the answer you two have decided upon?
Bobby Burns.
No, I'm sorry. The correct answer is Robert Louis Stevenson. So that means the big question next week will be worth $2,500. Well, you lost the big money, but how much did they win in the quiz, George?
$285 in the quiz.
That's not too bad. Congratulations, and thanks to both of you and to all of our contestants on the show tonight.
You bet. Be sure to tune in again next Wednesday night at the same time for the Groucho Marx Show, when the big question will be worth $2,500. And don't miss Groucho's television show, also presented by the DeSoto Plymouth Dealers of America. And remember that the dealers who sell the distinguished 1953 DeSoto also sell the brilliant new Plymouth, the first truly balanced car in the low-priced field. DeSoto, Plymouth, two great new cars. Both products of the Chrysler Corporation.
And when you drive in, tell them Groucho sent you. Good night, folks, and remember, see the 1953 DeSoto.
Folks, here's a reminder from the National Safety Council. Don't surprise the other driver. Use hand signals. You Bet Your Life, transcribed from Hollywood, is produced by John Goodell. Directed by Robert Dwan and Bernie Smith. Music by Jerry Fielding. This is George Fenneman signing off for the more than 3,000 DeSoto Plymouth dealers from coast to coast.
You know, Matt, I had a thought while listening to tonight's broadcast, and that was, well, do you realize that starting this year, as much time separates us from D-Day as separated those veterans from the Battle of Gettysburg? Huh. Honestly, you gave me something to think about. Yeah, there can't be many of those old veterans still knocking around, can there? I wouldn't think so, no. So if you happen to see one of those veterans, thank them for their service. Yep, that sounds like a good thought to me. Well, at the end of this historic day, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
News.